Welcome to Go Away Industry Insiders webcast series. Pick up insider tips and tricks. Follow the stories of proven and successful travel industry professionals, all the while journeying into the exotic worlds of Go Away. Today we're speaking to Renee Stanton, who is the Director of Sales here at Go Away Travel. And Renee was very lucky in that she has literally come back, a week ago?
Yes, a week today.
Yeah, a week ago she returned from Egypt, and she traveled with some as equally lucky travel partners from some of our consortia partners. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Do you want to say who was with you?
We had someone from Travel Savers, someone from Signature, and someone from World Travel Holdings.
Okay, and these were senior executives within those respective consortia.
Correct.
Enjoying the sights and sounds of Egypt. So people out there might be wondering why we would send people to Egypt, and the simple answer is, well, I'm not going to answer it. I'll let Renee answer it. So on that note, what was the reason for the trip to Egypt?
Yeah, absolutely. So our VP of Africa and the Middle East, I was actually at a meeting in December, so only a couple of months ago, and she met with the Egypt Tourism Board. And naturally, the events that happened in Israel, we did see a big slump in sales to Middle Eastern destinations. So they discussed the idea of sending some influential people in the travel industry to Egypt. So I was lucky enough to be one of those people. And we also invited some senior executives from some of our consortia partners. So that was the reason for the trip, to really be able to showcase that Egypt is in fact safe, and to get some information on the ground, and then to be able to pass it back to the travel advisors in North America.
Okay, so on that note, because I think people watching today, their first instinct will be the region is, I wouldn't say unstable, but there's obviously stuff going on with the Israel-Palestinian conflict at the moment. And though Egypt, well, the part of Egypt most people go to, Alexandria, Cairo, and down, is well away as the crow flies from those issues, it's still a concern to people traveling. So I guess the obvious question is, did you feel safe when you were in Egypt?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I would be remiss to say that was I a little bit hesitant to go? Of course. I think it's human behavior. I'm sure my husband wasn't too happy at first that I was going to Egypt. But I reassured him that as a company, Go Away would not send me somewhere unsafe. But yeah, of course, it crossed my mind before arriving. But I can tell you, Don, as soon as I landed at Cairo Airport, you're actually greeted just before customs by a Go Away representative. And that particular person straight away just put my mind at ease, because they took care of everything. They got me through customs, transferred me to the hotel, and straight away the warmth, the hospitality of the Egyptian people really was evident when I was there. And never at once through the whole trip did I feel unsafe. Actually, I lie. There was one time I felt slightly unsafe, and that's when I crossed the road. But if you've been to Egypt or Vietnam or places like that, you'll know exactly what I mean. But it was a very, very welcoming country. And even walking the streets late at night, which I did by myself, and I felt absolutely safe. So I think by having that Go Away representative there on call 24/7 as well helps. But also just knowing that it is a very secure country. I learned when I was there, they have one of the biggest military forces in all of the world. They have close to 1 million people. There is a lot of checkpoints at every single monument hotel that you go to. So I joked that Egypt probably has the most security. What are those things called that you walk through at the airport? Those security X-ray machines,
I guess is
yeah. They probably have the most per capita than anywhere in the world, because you are going through them a lot. But it really puts your mind at ease, makes you feel a lot safer. And also, if some of the listeners here are or aren't aware, the Camp David Treaty that was signed, I think it was back in 1979. You're a historic buff, so you can probably correct me if I'm.
It was the 70s, but I don't know the exact year.
I think it was around 79. Since then, that was all about peace in the Middle East, and they truly still believe that. They're a very peaceful country. And so with all of those things, I really felt safe when I was there.
So just on the cultural aspect of it, Egypt, most people are probably aware, is quite a modernized, I wouldn't say westernized, but they're not as strict as other Middle Eastern countries. So you, as a blonde-haired blue-eyed. I'm not sure. I
I've
can't
got green.
see.
I've got green
Green
eyes.
eyes.
Yeah.
Okay, but blonde hair is a bit of a unique feature in the Middle East, and a female as well. Did you have to cover up in any form or fashion?
No, we didn't. Actually, I was quite surprised at how modernized it was. So, our tour guide that was there, who was Muslim, about 85% of the country are Muslim, 15% are Christian. And he had two daughters, teenagers, one that did want to wear the, oh, forgive me, is it the hijab? Forgive me if I'm saying that incorrectly.
No, well, that is the correct terminology, but that's the full covering as far as I'm aware.
Oh, okay. So, let's
and
just say,
again, I do know in parts of Egypt they do wear the hijab, the full thing, or a chador. Oh, hang on, I can't remember now. Yeah, I can't remember. One's just a head covering, one's the full covering. So.
correct. So just a head covering. So he had one daughter that just wore a head covering and the other one that didn't. So a lot of the Muslim females there dress very similar to how we would in North America, jeans, jumpers, sweaters, I should say.
Sweaters, yeah.
So I did, and it's a very cosmopolitan, forward thinking. They're very well educated. So I didn't, definitely I thought that would be the case, and thought when I went everywhere I'd have to dress with my knees covered and all of that type of thing. That is not the case, strangely enough. They only say at religious sites, obviously respect that and ensure you cover your shoulders and your knees. However, at all of the other tourist sites, people were dressed the way they would dress here.
Right, okay. So that's good news, particularly for the females. But again, as you mentioned, it's like in any country, be it Muslim, Christian, or otherwise, any holy site, religious site, you're expected to cover up and be modest.
Yes.
No matter what. Okay, so the itinerary. Well, let's go back to some basics. How did you get there? Obviously, flying. I know that, but you were out of Canada. The consortia partners, were they Canadian or US based, or a mix?
They were US. So they flew Egypt Air. I flew a combination of Air Canada and Egypt Air. So don't really have to speak too much to the national carriers in Canada and the US, because I'm sure we're all familiar with them. But Egypt Air does offer some direct services from the US and Canada. Off the top of my head, Toronto, New York, and Washington were the three gateways that we used. And everyone was pleasantly surprised with Egypt Air. One thing to note is they do not sell alcohol on board, but the food, that was what really took me by surprise. And we'll talk more about food in a minute, because that was definitely something that stood out in Egypt. But, you know, the mez plates, things like that they had on board. Delicious juices. One thing about Egypt is they make freshly squeezed juices. So if you have a strawberry juice or a mango juice, it literally is fresh mangoes crushed up, and they serve that on board as well. So the service and the food was really good. In regards to the aircraft, I would say it was mid-range. You know, it still offered the seat back entertainment and things of that nature. But having a direct flight, I think, can make a world of difference as well.
And you flew into Cairo, I would assume?
We certainly did.
Okay. So a quick overview of the itinerary. You went Cairo, as we just mentioned. We'll go into detail in a minute, but you went Cairo to where else?
Then we went down to Luxor, and that's where we hopped on our Nile cruise. I meant Aswan, my apologies. We flew down to Aswan, and then went Aswan to Luxor, and then we flew from Luxor back to Cairo, and then we went to Alexandria.
Oh, you did go to Alexandria. Okay, nice. So what were your impressions of Egypt? Because this is the first time you've been, correct?
It was. It's always been a dream of mine, Don. So I was so happy to finally be invited on this particular trip. So firstly, I think I've already touched on it, the people. They really are. It's very genuine. They absolutely love us being here, and they're very proud about their country as well, and sharing the history of their country. So that really stood out. And one of the tour guides simply put it to me: if you saw a homeless person on the side of the street and you walked up to them, they would hand you the bread that they were eating. That's just who they are. So the Egyptian people, they love to feed you. I can tell you. I definitely put on some kilos when I was there, but that is part of their culture, to feed you, take care of you. And we definitely felt that when we were there. I think as well, the other things that caught me by surprise is just the sheer size of these historic monuments and the level of detail they have. We're talking over 5,000 years ago, some of these monuments, and the fact you can still see paint on them, and just how it's carved out, every single monument. So I think everyone thinks Egypt. They think, naturally, the pyramids, which, of course, I was so excited to see. but the other monuments are just as good. So Egypt is not just about the pyramids. If your clients were just doing a quick stopover in Cairo, I would say no, that's only just scratching the surface. They really need to go down south as well.
Right. Yeah, that's something, as you mentioned, I am into history a bit, and an often used term on the age of things in Egypt, particularly the pyramids, and hopefully I get this right. We, as in you and I and everyone listening to us today, live closer to the time of Cleopatra than Cleopatra did to the building of the pyramids.
Wow.
So
Get your head around that one.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, it's, yeah, I went many, many years ago. And to your point, it's just the age is amazing.
Yeah.
And the quality and how good condition these ruins are in, considering they've been looted and hacked at and everything else, because there's also, from the history side of things, the base of the pyramids, you had Napoleon's army were there. It's a bit of a myth. They weren't using the pyramids as target practice, but they did unload some of their muskets there. From your point of view, the Australians and Kiwis camped out at the base of the pyramids before they went off to Gallipoli. So it's seen a lot of history, and that's just the pyramids. And as you mentioned, Luxor, the Valley of the Kings, even more. So on that note, we just mentioned Valley of the Kings, Luxor, the Nile, the pyramids, Alexandria. What were your highlights, or what were both. What were the highlights of the trip, and what were your highlights of the trip?
Sure thing. Okay, so naturally the pyramids, that was a very much a aha, pinch me moment. But one thing we did there that was quite unique is had lunch at this beautiful restaurant, and it's only newly opened. I think it's only a few years old. And sitting out there with a nice cold Sakara, which is their local lager. And
yeah, you've got a photo of that I'll use.
Yes, I do have a photo of me drinking there, and just looking at the pyramids and really being able to take it in and absorb where you were. That was a really cool moment for, I think, everyone that was on this particular trip. Another thing, the Grand Egyptian Museum. So you may or may not have heard it. It's been in the they have been trying to open this museum, and look, you could probably fact check me on this, but I believe it was around 2012 that they were supposed to open it, and we're now, 2024. So they keep on having false starts. COVID, obviously now what's happening in Israel. They do believe that it will open this year, but we were lucky enough to see part of the museum. So it's partly opened at the moment. The size of this museum is just incredible, and it's right beside the pyramids. So it's going to makes for a really good day out to go see the pyramids, but also see this museum. And one of the all of his jewelry is going to be housed there. And just what we saw was only 15% of it, and still that blew our mind. So I think the Grand Egyptian Museum will absolutely be a key for everyone and a highlight. Luxor was probably one of my favorite cities. I'm sure you've been, you know it. It's just such a beautiful city right on the lake, and you have Luxor Temple literally right there. So I really loved that particular city. Valley of the Kings, my goodness, absolutely incredible, being able to go in and see all the different tombs. When we were there, 9 of the tombs were open. I think there's close to 60. I might be wrong. And it always changes according to which ones they open up. And we got to visit 3 of them. So typically a tour will include 3.
I think I saw on your Instagram, as in the Go Away Pro Instagram, plug. Did you get, I think it's Queen Nefertiti's tomb, which is, as actually from memory, has only a limited number of visitors a day. Did you get into that? I think I saw a video of that.
We went to the Valley of the Queens, but we didn't go into that specific tomb.
Oh, okay.
That one costs approximately $200 to go in, because they really want to keep it, because it's one of the most intact tombs. We did not visit that one, but we did visit one of the other Queen's tombs, which was beautiful.
Yeah.
However, it's not the same level as what the King's ones were.
Oh, okay. Right.
Yeah. So, and then the Nile cruise, I think for me, just sitting up on the upper deck of the Sinesta St. George and just watching the world pass is always such a nice thing to do. So doing a Nile cruise really balances out your day, because you're doing so much touring, and then being able to hop straight back on board and just relax and really take in the sights of the Nile.
Yeah, so I think that's an important point. Most people do it, but not all, is that if you go to Egypt and you visit sort of top to bottom Alexandria all the way down to the Valley of the Kings, Aswan, etc., that one, the country is dissected by the Nile, and it's world famous, and the country's been sought after by all the empires because of the Nile and its grain production. But so it's the heart of Egypt. But as you just mentioned, it also gives you the opportunity to literally relax, because it's when you go to Egypt, and you can attest to this, you're busy because you're seeing as much as you can. It's hot. So the cold beers are always good. But again, that sort of downtime while not being in your room is plus. You can be having downtime, relaxing, sitting on, as you say, the top deck, viewing Egypt, ancient and modern, as you sail on by. So having a Nile River cruise built into your itinerary is one of our expert tips for everyone out there. So on that point, you've talked about cruising on the Nile. You didn't say fly to Aswan, but you would fly. So how did you get around Egypt? Because it is quite a big distance to cover from Alexandria all the way down to Aswan.
Yeah, absolutely. So from Cairo to Aswan, that was a flight, approximately an hour. And then from Aswan to Luxor, we did a 3-night river cruise. But it's done at a very relaxed pace. You mainly cruise at nighttime, not during the day, with the exception of some afternoons, which again is beautiful because you get to see the surroundings around you. So then when we got to Luxor, we flew from Luxor back to Cairo. And then we actually drove to Alexandria. So you can go from Luxor to Alexandria, but I don't believe there's a direct flight. You actually have to go via Cairo. So they decided that it would make more sense for us to actually drive from Cairo to Alexandria. It's about 3 hours, because by the time you transfer, get onto your other flight and all of those things, it takes a little bit longer. So there was a driving component. We were in a minibus, extremely comfortable. One thing I would like to mention about goaways, when you do go to Egypt with us, it's all privately guided. So you're not in those big buses of 40 plus people. And I can tell you the advantages really spoke for themselves when we were arriving to these sites before everyone else did. The crowds are insane in Egypt. And I was there at a time when they were very light. So I can only imagine in the peak season how busy it gets. So I think by having that privately guided experience really does make a world of difference.
Now, I know back in the day there was a lot of backpackers or people on a budget took a train from Cairo to Alexandria. Is that an option still, as far as you're aware?
Yeah, there's also trains that you can take from Cairo all the way down to Aswan, but they're quite long. I think the guide said close to 9 hours, and he didn't recommend it to our group. Now, in saying that, we were more on the luxury side of things with our itinerary, but you can do it. They do have sleepers on board the train as well.
Okay.
So yes, but I would highly recommend doing more so for the go away clientele, flying and utilizing the Nile cruise and so forth. And then just doing a privately guided transfer up to
So on the drive up to Alexandria, what were the roads like? Were they, sealed, comfortable?
It's actually quite surprising, Don. They were just as good as what we have here in North America. And forgive me, I'm going to say kilometers. We went 120 kilometers. That was the speed limit. They even had en routes. That's very much a Canadian term, but the stops along the way on the freeways, and there was a Starbucks. But it had what we would experience in North America. So they had the stops on the way, clean bathrooms, great food. So it was a very, very comfortable journey. No traffic, though. That was the one thing that was different to North America. There were five or 6 lane highways, so we're talking about a 12, so a big freeway.
Wow.
But hardly anyone on it. No traffic. It was literally 120 the whole way.
Nice. Okay,
now that's kilometers. Don't get scared, our American friends. We were not going 120 miles.
Yeah, that's probably we're probably looking 85, 80.
Yeah, 70,
about
80?
85 miles an hour.
Okay.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Which is, average speed on, the expressways in LA and everywhere else as well.
Yeah. Now, in saying that, Don, I wouldn't recommend driving there though, because they don't believe in lanes. So I would say don't hire a car.
Well, I was just about to say, because even though there might not be much traffic on the way to Alexandria, I know when I drove around Alexandria, I actually drove up the coast to El Alamein. Driving is fun. It's like I wouldn't like. I'm a different type of travel than Renee, and I've driven all my life as an overland driver, so I would always say drive. But your point is 100% valid. It is chaotic. The rules that we would ascribe to don't exist in a lot of these countries. So if you want to drive, go for it, but be prepared to, disregard the use of lanes and red lights and
Yeah,
this
it's
type of
kind of
stuff.
and put it this way, there was not one car where we didn't see a dent or scratch on it, if that can tell you anything.
Yeah, fair enough. So we are recording this in the end of Feb 24, which is Northern Hemisphere winter, which is
Yes.
when obviously Renee went. She's back a week from the date we're recording this. So what was the temperature like when you were there in all? Because I know it varies. It's hot in general, but it varies from Cairo to Alexandria down to Aswan.
That's correct. So in Cairo, it was a very moderate. Now I've converted us to Fahrenheit here. So it was approximately 20 degrees Celsius, 68 Fahrenheit. So beautiful weather. Honestly, it couldn't have been any better. Now, when we went down south, it did become warmer, but it was never uncomfortable. So
Right.
that all being said, to travel in the Northern Hemisphere's winter is the ideal time. Now, keep in mind, though, it's also the busy time. So if you were to ask me when to travel to Egypt, I'd say right now because the crowds are fewer and obviously you've got beautiful weather there at the moment. In the middle of their summer though, which is our summer as well,
Yep.
it does get very, very hot. So what they tend to do is the touring in the morning and then come back to your hotel and relax a little bit. So, it can go into the hundreds, 110, 40 degree plus type weather in the middle of summer.
Yeah. So as Renee just said, basically North American winters is a time to be in Egypt. Of course, anywhere in the world, shoulder season is always another good time. Wouldn't say don't go in their summer, but avoid it. And that leads to, unless you're going budget, all the hotels that Go would offer you or your clients on an itinerary will, of course, be air conditioned. The private vehicles we use are all air conditioned. Do they supply water for you when you're in the vans?
Yeah, they do. They supply water daily for you as well. And talking about the level of accommodation, it is very much on par with what we have here in North America. We were fortunate enough to stay at the Four Seasons and the Fairmont properties.
Very
now,
nice.
price wise, they are very affordable. So, just to give you an idea, Don, in the last 5 years, the US dollar to the Egyptian pound 5 years ago was 10 to 1. So, for every US dollar, you got back 10. It is now 30 to 1.
Ooh, nice.
So it has tripled in 5 years. However, the pricing really hasn't changed. So it's made it a much more affordable holiday. So just to give you an example, because I love examples, I got room service at the Fairmont one night for dinner. I had a pasta and a Greek salad. It was $15, including tip and tax.
Well, there you go.
At a Fairmont, which, that would usually be close to $40, $50. So beers were very reasonable. But one thing I will put out there is I did order a gin and tonic and it was 40 US. So make sure you check the menu because the beer was only 6. So, and then cocktails were only 10. So it's one of those things. Don't assume that it's going to be the same pricing as what we have here in North America. Just make sure you check because that was probably the most expensive gin and tonic we've ever had.
Yeah, I bet. So yeah, there you go. So it's an affordable destination, particularly at the moment. And again, we were using examples, as Renee likes to do, as she said, use examples, but they were in like the 5-star hotels. So if budget's an issue and or you want to, go local, eating on the streets, eating local restaurants, it's going to be even cheaper.
Oh, again, honestly, the local restaurants were extremely affordable and good local restaurants. Eating on the street, depending on how I personally would not do it myself. I'm sure you've done it many times, Don. I tend to not be someone that eats street food unless I have a guide with me that says you'll be okay. But for argument's sake, eating at the pyramids and eating at some of these beautiful restaurants were maybe $15, $20 a head with a beer. Yeah. So very, very affordable.
Right. So again, right now is a good time to go. I don't want naturally coin is taking advantage of the situation. People are nervous to go, but as we discussed, as we opened up, it's a safe destination to travel to. If you can get out there now or your clients can get out there in the immediate future, it's a good time to go. It's cheap, or I wouldn't say cheap, don't use that word. It's affordable.
Affordable luxury. Let's say that.
Affordable luxury. And this, again, with the example we're talking about today with Renee and her traveling buddies, they did go luxury itinerary. But Egypt, like everywhere else, offers anywhere from 3 to 5 star. But if your clients are looking for luxury, Egypt has it at the highest level. And of course, it has hostels and stuff if you do have clients who want to really go with budget in mind. Easy to get to. You've got all the big highlights. So what would you like to leave our listeners and viewers with advice, suggestions, impressions of your trip to Egypt?
I think as travel professionals, it's our duty to really educate our clients on Middle Eastern destinations. And I think by working with a company like Go Away, who has representation on the ground, talking to one of our destination specialists and really finding out about it, because not just Egypt, Jordan's another destination that obviously borders Israel and is suffering the same thing. So I think just when you do talk to your clients, give them, talk to our destination specialists and give them feedback in regards to who has been there right now. I think that's why we wanted to be there, to be able to showcase to the North American travel advisors that it is safe to go there right now. One thing that's notable is it's mainly the North American market that's seen a downturn in sales. The European market, the British market, the Australian market, they're all still traveling to Egypt. So it really is only the North American market that's filled that pinch. So please, they need us. Tourism is the backbone of their economy, especially along the Nile River. So please educate your clients, tell them that it's safe to go, and let's welcome them to this beautiful bucket list destination that is Egypt. So I honestly, it was such an incredible experience, and it will be one of those destinations that I always hold close to my heart. I think I've talked enough about the people, the food, the city, the facilities that it has. All in all, it was just an incredible experience. And I can't wait to go back. I don't think it's a one-time destination because there's so much more for me to still see. So that's probably what I would like to leave everyone with.
Yeah, it's sort of getting away from the Egypt subject, but on the whole, the point you made about it's a safe place, the region, generally speaking, is safe, because we also had people about 4 weeks ago come back from Jordan and Saudi Arabia as well.
Yeah.
So even closer to the ongoing conflict at the moment. The region, excluding Israel, of course, at the moment, is safe to travel to. As Renee's mentioned, it's affordable. Egypt is world famous. We've highlighted many things today, but most people know of Egypt for all the obvious reasons. So it's the time to go. Less crowds, affordable, right temperature. And if not now, you can go this time next year or next season. So on that note, I want to thank everyone for tuning in today. My camera just went down. And we will talk to you soon. Renee, thank you very much for your time. And I'm very jealous of your trip. It looked like an amazing time.
Thank you so much, Don. And wait, sorry, one last thing I should probably mention. We gave a little plug to our Instagram account, but if you haven't joined Go Away Pro Instagram yet, please do. All of my stories from Egypt are actually on there. We're also creating reels, and they're shareable. And it's not just to Egypt, but all the different destinations around the world. So to really help you with your social media, we have created this particular Instagram account. So that launched a couple of months ago. So there's a little insider tip for the audience today.
Yeah, good point. And we just put up on our Facebook group for those who follow us how to share our content as well. Because it's going up. We have a really good person in charge of that, and she's got content going up all the time.
Yeah.
And again, when people are traveling now, as Renee did, she was posting herself. So take the content, share it with your other agents, with your clients, show them what a wonderful world that Go Away can offer you and them. And on that very positive note, I want to thank everyone again for tuning in, and thank you, Renee.
Thanks, Don, for having me.
No worries.